Alright, as you can see, we have a long video on our hands here. So, I'd like to think it's going to be the normal length. It just happens to be 7 movies instead of 3 or 4.
The and more actually matters this time.
Yeah.
A lot more than normal.
Because a lot of things are coming out on DVD.
A lot of things are long titled, too.
So we're playing a little bit of catch up. Our first movie is going to be The Secret Life of Pets. Because it drew the short straw, I guess. So I was a little, you almost didn't get this review.
Correct. I never mentioned this because I didn't want to do it because I know you're not about mentioning personal things.
I wasn't going to, but I might as well. It's very, just in case my heart doesn't seem in it, they'll know why. I had a dog for 15 years that I just happened to lose last week because he just couldn't go on anymore. And it just so happens, 15 years of owning him, and it's the week after that this movie comes out.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I had a plan in mind in case this didn't happen.
So I was wondering if this was going to be, and it was, he was winding down for a long time, so it was always, I was telling you, we were basically playing Beat the Clock. I was like, when does Secret Life of Pets come out? I feel like we're going to get poorly timed there. And of course, that's pretty much exactly what happened. right when it got here.
Right.
But I went ahead and decided to suck it up and just since there's so many animals in it, I figured it would be fine.
And there's no animals at all that resemble.
Pretty much, yeah. So before it even starts, we get this life-draining Minions short.
Oh, God.
Because it's, Illumination is what they're called?
Yeah, it's Illumination Entertainment.
So I'm going to assume every movie they do now. They got Sing coming out at Christmas.
Sing looks decent.
That might have another one as well.
Possibly.
So once you get past that, the movie begins. It's just them doing yard work. They want to buy a blender for their bananas. It's riveting shit. But then the movie starts. And it basically becomes this ode to any and all pets.
Mm-hmm.
And all those particular observations. Like you have like Max's idea of the day he's going to have is to sit by the door and wait for his owner to come home.
Right.
And it basically becomes Toy Story with pets.
That's what a lot of people have been saying.
About the what do they do when nobody's around thing.
Right.
So we get all the different stuff, like there's the normal pet stuff. There's stuff about laser pointers and cats. There's a funny moment where they're having a house party, and to get all the dogs out of the room, they just bring the vacuum out, which of course works. And we actually have, I was surprised we have kind of a vast array here. I mean, it is mostly dogs.
Right.
We're dealing with maybe 80% dogs. But there's also, we get a glimpse of a fish. There's a bird that likes to watch Top Gun-like movies and pretend he's in them. There's a couple of cats. Well, there's a lot of cats, but really only 1 or 2 that are actually focused on. And it's basically, would you say it's trying to be Pixar a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I didn't really feel that too much, because there was a lot, this is one of those, a problem a lot of animated movies have lately, which is, all the other different movies you can see in them. Like, for instance, something I wasn't really expecting with this setup. Do you know what movie is very, very here in spirit throughout this movie? Is Flushed Away.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is, and I was trying to remember if that was DreamWorks, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But then it's also, there's, especially the scene when they confront the cats and all that. Just kind of, the whole city aspect in general. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
There's so much Oliver and Company in this movie too,
which is hilarious because it's actually been playing on television recently. So
you're saying they're anticipating this.
Of course, very much Oliver and Company. There's just no music here.
There's also even, I mean, people like to say it's Toy Story for pets and stuff like that, which is true. But honestly, you know what I was actually getting a vibe of also was I don't just feel like it's Toy Story with pets. I feel like it's Adventures in Babysitting with pets.
That makes sense.
Because you know eventually we're going to get the whole we've got to race home scene. Which, of course, was giving me Adventures in Babysitting vibes, not, in fact, Ferris Bueller vibes. Which you could also probably take from that. And yeah, there is... I mean, the great thing, though, is that a lot of the characters feel like their own thing. Like, most of the characters feel... very unique to this movie. Like Louis C.K. doing Max kind of gives him this. And last night I was kind of thinking this. It's almost kind of a Woody Allen vibe with just how much he. Because I was watching interviews with Louis where he was basically saying that he could relate to Max and that he's a New Yorker, which is the most social place on earth. But most people. But, like, the most antisocial people live there. Like, all Max would want to do is just kind of stay in his apartment. That's really all he needs to do, despite being in, like, one of the biggest cities ever. And then there's, Jenny Slate's dog is adorable. Like, her voice work is really, really good here. And just her voice work alone makes the character somebody you really want to see get everything that she wants. And she has a run-in with a falcon?
Yeah.
That is Albert Brooks, who is basically doing James Woods' part in Stuart Little, too.
Who's kind of a hawk more than a falcon.
I guess. But regardless, he basically wants to eat or kill everything in sight, but he has to kind of be nice in order to get what he desires.
He's Bruce the Shark.
You could say that, which with a much more stretched out part.
Yeah.
There is one character here that I really like. But once again, it brings you back to another movie. And that is our villain.
Yes.
Is this tiny rabbit.
My God, yes.
This tiny, bloodthirsty rabbit voiced by Kevin Hart. I really like this character, and I like the voice work, and everything is working for me. Only trouble is, I know hardly anybody remembers this movie.
Oh my God.
Boingo from Hoodwinked.
Hoodwinked. You're going to say Andy Dick from Hoodwinked.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking, too.
But even though I was getting serious Boingo vibes from him...
Big time.
He's still kind of... It's kind of surprising how bloodthirsty he is.
He found his calling doing VO.
He initially... Because he's initially upset about the death of his friend Ricky, who is a duck. Who they have a nice memorial to.
They always look at it, too.
But then his prized viper that he uses to bite people ends up getting killed in a hilariously contrived way. And the movie basically turns into... oh shit, what was his name? I don't remember now. But Kevin Hart's bunny's plot is basically to chase them around to avenge the
Snowball.
snake. Okay.
Which was the name of my cat back when I was a kid.
Not to be confused with Snow Bell, who was Nathan Lane, and we're back to it already. Stuart Little.
Yep.
So that's actually just one plot. There's kind of a lot of plots here.
Oh yeah.
But the weird thing is that the movie just moves so quickly.
Yeah.
Like this movie's
you can't breathe.
This movie really, really goes fast. Which for a movie like this is actually a really good thing. Because there's also there's the whole thing with the army of cats, which is a really good scene in itself. Is the hairless cat, was that Steve Coogan?
Yeah, of course it was.
Who's also kind of an antagonist here briefly. And so yeah, it doesn't really. It's not providing anything new. The newest thing it has to offer is the unique qualities of a lot of the characters. I do like the dynamic between Louis C.K. and Eric Stonestreet. Where Eric Stonestreet is the giant dog that's for a while you kind of think that's what the whole movie's going to be, is the fact that his owner brings home Duke, who's this gigantic dog who basically says, I'm bigger than you, so I'm taking over now. I'm taking your bed and all that.
But it goes further than that.
Yeah, I like that little animation detail when Max has to stay up all night because Duke is snoring and his pupils are like this size, and he just kind of has to shake it off, and then they go back to normal size. And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of visual gags in the movie too, but like the whole opening where we see all the different pets and how they interact when they're alone. But then there's also stuff like there's that thing, and then there's the scene that's devoted to watching the wiener dog climb.
That was good.
And then there's one thing that Snowball did that I thought was really funny. That's just kind of in there. That if you're not really paying attention, you wouldn't even notice. And it was just a weird quality I noticed. But it was when he's freaking out to the snakes about the password, and now he's the boss, so he doesn't need a password. And you can tell he's getting really, really riled up, but instead of like getting riled up immediately, he kind of does that thing where he digs his foot in the floor like he's like shy, but just before he blows up. And then there is, and there's one particular moment when Max is talking to Duke about the predicament they found themselves in, and they're in like the park, and there's a pigeon sitting here. And without breaking stride whatsoever, like he's just kind of monologuing. And without even breaking a sentence, he's just kind of talking, and he goes over to the pigeon, and the pigeon, like, does a pigeon thing, and Max just kind of flinches, because it's right in his face. But he doesn't stop this whole thing, and he doesn't stop what he's talking about at all. He just walks away from the pigeon and keeps going. I just love the little things that are in there like that. Like I was saying, there's quite a few big set pieces, like the cat scene. That I really like. That help it kind of. I mean, it never breaks out of being somewhat minor and probably forgettable in the long run. But it is also quite funny. There's some scenes in there that are just. I kind of wish you had loved by this point. I kind of wish you had seen this scene because I don't know how to describe it, but it's. They find a sausage factory.
Oh yeah.
And once they take a bite out of it, they go into this, I don't know if it's a fantasy or a hallucination brought on by the sausage, but it's this whole big scene where they have this kind of hallucination when they're in a sausage-filled world with We Go Together from Grease playing.
Yeah.
And it's a whole thing. It felt a lot like the scene when they go inside SpongeBob's brain. In the past SpongeBob movie, when Plankton went in there, and that's what it felt like.
Oh wow!
It was fucking weird.
Yeah, I'm reading about it right here actually.
So yeah, that's the main problem is it really feels it's weird that it's so I guess you could say plot heavy, because throughout the whole movie you kind of feel like there's room for them to do more. Like go kind of farther into the concept. But as it is, it just kind of, it seems to be borrowing from a lot of movies and just kind of doing a whole borrowed thing. But
a lot of movies are doing nowadays.
It's still quite entertaining. And like I said, it's basically that whole thing about, it's like a love letter to just having pets in general. And it's, yeah, and it's less like, I feel pained by that concept and more like, because I did have a pet and for so long, I get why we're seeing what we're seeing and
right.
what they're conveying with that. So, yeah, it's nice. And like I said, very fast. It moves really, really quickly. They don't do a whole lot in as far as like emotional impact. Like there's one subplot with Eric Stone Street's dog. And it does have, like, you know, it's like an emotional thing, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of payoff to it. Like, it's just kind of in there, and then as soon as it's in there, it's gone already. Which kind of felt like it was going to be a big deal, and then weirdly, just kind of wasn't. So it does feel like there's some stuff missing, but for the most part, it is very entertaining and very funny. So
can this be a franchise? I mean,
they might be pushing their luck if they try that.
It was nice to hear Dana Carvey's voice too.
Which one was he?
It was Pops.
Oh yeah, of course.
I was very happy to hear Dana Carvey's voice because he's somebody that really doesn't get enough work.
Yeah. And voice work's probably where he needs to be.
I think Kevin Hart voice work is where he needs to be. I think he's found his calling.
Has he done any more voice work? I was thinking surely he had.
You'd think so, but to my knowledge, that's the first time. Unless he's done something like that, like no one remembers, because his career is basically just the stand-up and a bunch of really random movies.
That character with a human body doesn't work as well as it does with a bunny's body.
Which is hilarious. I mentioned this because next year he's doing Captain Underpants.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're actually in. Oh god, he's doing the Untouchables now.
Yeah, but who'd they get for the other guy? It was supposed to be Colin Firth. It
I know.
was supposed to be Colin Firth and Chris Tucker.
See, he's taking Chris Tucker's roles now. Come on. It's finally happened, guys. Come on. I don't see an actual list for it here.
Okay. Well, now the...
Bryan Cranston.
Really?
Yeah, Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart. And it's going to be... Oh, no. Directed by Simon Curtis with a screenplay by Paul Feig.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah.
no. Oh, no.
We'll see how that goes. It's weird to talk about the Untouchables and the Secret Life of Pets, so we'll move on before our crowd gets confused.
The movie's really good if you've never seen it. Check it out.
Our second movie is going to be Mike and Dig Need Wedding Dates. While watching this movie for a straight 98 minutes last night, I was actually trying to figure out how this review was going to go down, because there's only so many times you can say, this movie is not funny.
Yep.
It's like, how do I go beyond just saying that over and over and over again?
Turns into one of my redundant reviews during the videos.
Well, first off, the first thing I noticed was a credit. We got further elaboration when the credits were over.
Right.
But still, just this credit alone really weirded me out. And that is based on the lives of and Mike and Dave's actual names.
Uh-huh.
Apparently this movie exists because Mike and Dave are real people. And then, and as I was saying, as soon as the credits are over, it does the based on a true story sort of thing. And so that immediately brings the question to, okay, the whole idea was that their sister's getting married, and their family decides that they need to stop pretending they're in Wedding Crashers and actually be civilized at a gathering.
Right.
So they need dates. So they go on the internet and they say, we need dates to go to Hawaii for a wedding. And they got like over 6,000 responses, and it went viral. I'm going to assume that's the extent of the true story.
It's a book. They wrote a book based on this, and it's literally called Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. And 1,000 cocktails.
I'm going to assume the movie is exaggerated, especially with the sort of, and then that basically says the setup's real, everything else isn't, is what I'm gathering. And so you watch this, and you realize this setup, and you think, okay, that's interesting that they got like 6,000 responses. It's not all that surprising that 6,000 people wanted a free trip to Hawaii.
Exactly.
So what went on with these dudes that warranted apparently a book as well as a movie? After watching the movie, I can't tell you the answer to that question.
Well, it's funny because they used Wendy Williams because they apparently went on Good Morning America and the Today Show to do this.
I was wondering if it was actually Wendy Williams or not. Okay. Well, all kinds of useless people have been on those shows. So, people that have long since disappeared into obscurity.
This is true.
Okay. Like, just imagine going through the archives of those shows and all the people with, like, useless talents and shit that were there. Okay. So, but the movie exists, now we have to deal with it, so let's do that.
Yeah.
This is one, I'll get this out of the way quickly, because it's a really obvious criticism that I'm sure a lot of people have already pointed out, but, yeah, it's Sandler syndrome.
Yeah.
Where it's, I feel less like we're watching a comedy, more like we're watching very rich actors get paid millions of dollars to hang out with each other in Hawaii. Oh. So, and every now and then they'll try to do something funny, but for the most part when you're watching these jokes play out, It's like every single line they say or every single act they do, the actors themselves are really, really trying not to laugh. Just for the whole movie. And we just kind of throw in forced, obvious cliche conflicts in there, just to kind of string it all together loosely. And there's so... Efron's really the only one that comes out of this unscathed. Because,
that's usually the case, though.
Because it's kind of interesting to me just how much he's broken out in comedy.
He's great.
Like, it's always kind of... Like, he always seemed to have kind of funny qualities.
Right.
But it's kind of amazing how, like, really prominent he is in the comedy world now. In comedy movies.
He's really good.
Because you've got the other one who is... I can't remember who's Mike and who's Dave.
Just remember,
I think,
Mike
Adam
means moron, Dave means...
I was to say, I think, yeah, Adam Devine is Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta do this without being an asshole.
I knew where this is going.
I'm not a fan of the guy.
Oh, I don't like this guy at all. I've never liked it. He's the worst part of Pitch Perfect to me. Dude, I like the movies.
Everything.
I like the movies.
Everything in Pitch Perfect is the worst.
But I'm biased, so you know that.
So, okay, we'll talk. Okay, the character. So I'm not insulting the guy personally.
He may be a very nice gentleman.
Yeah. A lot of people seem to want to work with him. So
yeah,
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's absolutely delightful in real life. However, this character. Let's talk about this character. I'm gonna say something I probably shouldn't have.
I know what you're getting ready to say.
Let's talk about this character, Mike, who is very, very... The whole idea surrounding the reason we're supposed to find this character funny is that he's really fucking obnoxious.
Yep.
And I get that that's the character. Like, that's his... he's committed. He's certainly committed to the character.
He's very meta.
We can say that. But actually, let me go into something before I start bashing everybody that's in it except Efron. The problem with this story as a whole, I get the appeal of having characters in a movie that are unlikable.
Right.
Because there's a lot of really great movies with characters that are just absolutely unlikable.
Oh, yeah. And most of the time it works.
Well,
okay, some of the time it works.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah, that's
or you'll end up with movies like this.
Right.
Where, here's the problem. This is the problem. Is that, if you're gonna do that, you really have to commit to it. You have to do the Seinfeld thing.
Right.
I know a lot of people don't like the Seinfeld finale, but if you're gonna make characters this unlikable, sooner or later, it has to be brought to their attention.
Of course.
That they are bad people. This movie is not about that. What this movie wants to do is have Mike and Dave, and all they want in life is to party and fuck.
Yep.
And all these girls want is a free vacation to Hawaii. They are all in this for selfish reasons.
Yep.
And the reason we learn right up front, the main reason they picked these two girls to go to Hawaii with them is because they wanted to fuck with them. That's the end of it. That is it. And like I said, all they want is a free vacation.
Yep.
They want nothing to do with this except for the fact that they're in Hawaii for free. We reach a point in this movie where we get the slow piano music and everybody gets sad because it turns out that the girls were lying about whatever they said they were. When you think about the fact that these guys are total and complete idiots, and the reason for this is because throughout the rest of the movie, they're not really portrayed as total and complete idiots, just obnoxious and selfish.
Right.
But for the sake of the plot, for the first part of this movie, we are supposed to buy in this one scene that they are the biggest, most gullible idiots in the entire world. Because when these girls lie, I know it's for the sake of the fact that they're starring in a comedy, which should not be that obvious, is the fact that they are so obviously lying. Like when Kendrick says that her boyfriend died 3 times in 3 different over-the-top ways.
Yep.
And Efron's response is not, well, that's clearly a lie, and then they go on that. Because his character, for one time in the movie, has an extreme lapse in intelligence, he just buys everything that she says. And when Aubrey Plaza talks about being a teacher, and she's clearly just pulling stuff out of her perfectly shaped ass when talking about this, he just accepts it. When they are so clearly lying, and the reason this is a problem, not only because it takes the movie in a wrong direction that it needs to be going, it becomes to the inevitable scene of the movie in the middle where everybody gets sad and feels betrayed because, oh no, the girls were lying. Which is the major conflict in the entire second half. And then that's the problem, is that when Adam Devine's character gets upset that Aubrey Plaza was clearly lying about being a teacher, we're supposed to feel bad for him. And the reason I know this is because of the sad piano music.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, I feel sad for the guy that's upset because the girl he only wanted for sex lied to him.
Yeah. Kind of hard to root for the guy.
That's just like Mike, isn't it? This character. That's just like this character, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, that's our main conflict. For the entire second half, we're dealing with this.
What was the wedding itself? That's a big conflict.
Oh, for God's sake. Yeah. So, okay, how do you think this movie ends? Do you think... Now, hold on. I'm not giving any spoilers here.
Oh, Lord.
I'm just wondering. I just really, really wonder. Do you think there's going to be a big scene that plays out in front of all the wedding guests that is so embarrassing and so outrageous, the wedding gets called off? And what's going to happen then? Do you think they're going to scramble and go to the future bride and groom and say, you guys just have to get married. We're reformed now because we want to get the two of you to do the wedding. And then it's, oh no, now everything's gone now because we called the wedding off. What are we going to do? Do you think there's going to be a montage with a pop song where they rush to put a wedding together real quickly? Have we never ever seen this movie before in our lives? I don't know. But man, this movie had so many twists and turns I wasn't expecting. Oh man, this movie was a thrill ride. I did not know what was going to happen next. And then, it's another one. I just feel like such a broken record when talking about this shit. Because I don't even know how many times I've done this now. But this is another movie with fucking Apatow syndrome. You know what I mean, right? The let's improv one-liners and see how many we can throw in. Whether they're funny or not, let's just say whatever comes off the top of our head. The director will think it's hilarious and just keep every fucking thing in the movie. And in case you don't get your fill, there's gonna be a gag reel just to throw the rest in there. And obviously Aubrey Plaza's playing one of those characters. I mean, it's kind of all of them, but Aubrey Plaza's character in particular is one of those, you know, the whole Aubrey Plaza thing. That's just her thing. But she's also one of those characters that's, I say dirty stuff all the time, and that's my thing. I just say dirty stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. That's just what I do. Even if there's no context, I just say dirty things. Because we want the movie to have an R rating and have that kind of atmosphere. Okay. Congratulations to you, but this adds nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Kendrick is a bit of an I don't know. Because there are movies that I really, really like her in. When movies like this come out, and the kind of shit she's been putting out, with Get a Job and Mr. Right being this year alone, on top of this, number one, you probably totally forget sometimes that she's an Oscar nominee.
I don't.
But then there's just, I just don't know. I don't know how to take her because, it almost feels like she's half-assing it a lot.
She knows what movie she's in, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, I don't know. Like, she's kind of she's like the person that's trying to be funny, but she's so endearing that you kind of want to, you know, pat her on the head and say good job, even when she's not doing very well. I don't know. Like you know, like she's trying.
They don't give her a lot to work with here, though.
Yeah, but how many Anna Kendrick performances do you need in 1 year to keep saying that she's just not given the right material before you realize maybe she's kind of out of her element here?
Maybe she shouldn't be doing comedies like this. It doesn't fit her
or
at all.
bad ones anyway, because she can be funny.
Yeah, very much so.
Like in her Oscar-nominated performance is mostly a comedic performance.
Yeah, the stuff she does with James Corden is always great.
Unless it's Into the Woods.
We don't talk about that. She was deep. She was okay. I liked her in Into the Woods.
Nobody cares what you like.
I like her. You get to put over Aubrey Plaza's ass when you were talking. I'm going to put over the fact that Anna Kendrick is...
Well, everybody knows that Anna Kendrick's attractive. What's that have to do with anything?
No, I mean, I think that if she would have had more to work with, this actually might have worked. But I mean, this movie was always going to fail for you anyway. It seems like, because it just wasn't your element.
But there's... I said that Dirty Grandpa was funny.
Dirty Grandpa was funny until it got ruined.
So, there was a chance. There was always going to be a chance. It just never took it. And it's
subplot.
Speaking of the one-liners thing.
Oh God.
This has something that's really, really starting to get on my nerves. I feel like Superbad started this, but I'm not positive. It probably goes before. Maybe the 40-Year-Old Virgin had some stuff like this, but I don't really remember.
You need to elaborate.
What is with I've talked about this before, too, in movies that aren't even related to this kind of thing.
Right.
It's just in really bad comedies, it seems. Like I said, it started in good comedies, but now just every fucking comedy does now. And it's one of those cases where you can tell it's just obvious improv. Why does everybody think it's so goddamn funny to say that somebody looks like something? Every other line in this movie is, you look like, fill in the blank with a pop culture reference. Or some kind of other reference.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's been done since 40-Year-Old Virgin.
The first time I remember specifically hearing it was when, in Superbad, when Fogel's wearing the vest, and Michael Cera says, take that off, you look like Aladdin.
Yeah.
And then from then on, that was unkillable. Every fucking buddy looks like something, and that is like half the jokes in every goddamn comedy now.
Right.
What? For God's sake, do something else.
And
just try one other thing. For God's sake.
And there's useless pop culture references, too.
And then there's stuff like the four-wheeler thing, the Jurassic Park thing.
Yeah.
When, we kind of know where the payoff is going.
Yeah, it's in the trailer.
Maybe not to the... Well, okay, fine. But for me, maybe not to the extreme.
Right.
But it's pretty obvious where something is going.
Mm.
For a scene that's going to have a really obvious payoff or a really obvious punchline, they sure as shit dragged out the joke.
Yeah, big time.
That's like, it's like Norm Macdonald's moth joke, only not funny. Where the joke is like 5 minutes long, and it's a really just very small punchline. Like the there's no punchline joke. Remember that joke? It's like that, only in fucking physical form. And it's a whole scene.
Right.
And wow, what a shitty payoff.
Yeah.
I mean, it does... okay, to their credit, that payoff progresses the plot.
Yeah.
But still, it's a really lame punchline for such a long-ass build-up. Oh, God. And how many times... in any movie ever that has featured a spa, how many times have we... maybe this one... maybe they change it up a little bit from movie to movie.
Mm-hmm.
But still, even in a basic place, just thinking about the unoriginality where every single thing is coming from. How many times do we need the funny massage scene? How many times have we fucking seen that shit?
Yeah, but to their credit, they did it differently this time, somewhat. The execution of it was different. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It was bizarre and strange, but it was different.
But it still got very, like... I got some Van Wilder vibes.
Yep.
Going back to fucking... There's so much stuff in this movie that was already covered in Seinfeld.
Yep.
I mean, that's a good place to take inspiration, sure.
Absolutely.
But I mean, unless you're like Larry David, maybe you should just not do that. I mean, I know Larry David gave us Sour Grapes, which is supposed to be a Seinfeld thing, and we saw how that turned out. But
right.
You get what I mean. Seinfeld was Seinfeld, and that's the end of it. When that show ended, it's nice to take inspiration because you're headed in the right place. But just... no. If you're gonna do it, at least fucking do it.
Commit to it. Another thing. Real quick, have you went back and watched trailers yet? I know you do that usually afterwards.
No. Not yet.
There are scenes that are in the trailer that are not in this movie.
You're talking about pop culture references.
Right.
Do you know how lazy this movie gets?
Yes, I just watched it.
It recycles its own pop culture references. There is a scene towards the beginning when he's hitting on Anna Kendrick.
Right.
And he's doing an impression of Liam Neeson from Taken.
Correct.
Do you know what happens later?
He mentions later.
Zac Efron makes another goddamn reference to Taken.
Yep.
That is in a completely different context.
This is true.
It's a funny line when he says that.
Mm-hmm.
But even so. And there are a few big laughs here.
Yes.
Mostly from Zac Efron deliveries.
Of course.
What the fuck is going on? Zac Efron should not be the comedy savior of so many movies.
He is.
I mean, good on him for doing that. I'm not trying to put him down. It's just...
It's come a long way since High School Musical, that's for sure.
It's just... But yeah, there are a couple of lines that Zac Efron says that are legit big laughs. But... just... And then you before we went into it, you were telling me there was something about the push pop.
Yeah.
And then when the scene happened, it was like it's going to be built up to be this big deal.
That's what.
And it's like, and you know what? It's so fucking useless. I can just tell you.
Yeah.
They built up this big thing about the push pop joke and how it's going to be this classic thing or something.
It's in the promos for the movie.
It's a fucking fisting reference.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Exactly.
It's not some big outrageous thing this movie came up with.
Nope.
It's fucking anal fisting.
Yeah.
Is all they're referring to. That's the big thing. That's the big joke they're going for.
That's the put over that everybody in the audience that are doing the after their response to what the movie was. They're doing those promos.
That doesn't matter.
The push pop.
That's like those movies where instead of showing you critical comments, they show you tweets.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, it's basically trying to be the next big comedy, but
no.
Not even close.
I mean, as always, Anna Kendrick and Aubrey Plaza are very, very, very nice to look at in most of the scenes. But again, that stuff's ruined in the trailer too. Because there's a scene where Aubrey Plaza goes to pull her pants down, and they cut it off right there, and that scene completely not even in the movie.
You know, Aubrey Plaza taking her pants off.
It's not
really
a big
familiar.
It's not a big deal.
Oh
anymore.
yeah, it was in another comedy earlier this year.
Right, one that was a lot better than this one.
The scene at the very end of Dirty Grandpa when it takes her like 5 minutes to take her pants off.
Yeah, that was funny.
Great. Okay. I haven't praised her a lot, but to Aubrey Plaza's credit, she's the only, I think, very, very attractive woman that can make taking her clothes off into a comedy bit.
I think Sarah Silverman could do it.
Probably.
Because she basically is taking what Sarah Silverman would do if she was stuck to comedies.
I do kind of get that,
Yeah.
Alright. Long story short, that movie's a fucking disaster. But let's move on.
Very true.
Because we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
We're only on movie 3 out of 7, so let's get there.
Oh, God.
Our third movie is Cell. Which is our new Stephen King adaptation. That I was excited about back in, 2008. Because it was going to be... Eli Roth was going to adapt the script and direct it.
Really?
But then Stephen King decided to adapt the script himself. Though apparently, I don't know how true this is, I just heard in passing that apparently John Cusack said that he and King were kind of forced out of the creative process of this movie after a while. Which is probably why it turned out so shitty.
Oh.
So, or Cusack just made a shitty movie and was trying to cover his ass, but... I take his word for it.
I would too. He seems to be a knowledgeable guy that doesn't lie.
Yeah. And that he and King were kind of pushed out of the process.
I'd buy that.
Weirdly enough, the movie's other star is Samuel L. Jackson. Which is funny because of the setup. And the setup is that we're in an airport and people are on their cell phones. And then something is triggered through a tower into all the cell phones, and anybody that has a phone to their ear when this wave goes through is basically turned into this vicious thing, and everybody attacks everybody. Yes, this was Samuel L. Jackson's plot in Kingsman.
It certainly was.
Though, mind you, I'm not sure when Kingsman was created, but this book was written in 2006. So I don't really know which came first as far as source material, but yes, it is funny. Not only is it funny, it's the same plot, but it just happens to fucking star Samuel L. Jackson. He's in so many movies now, sooner or later they were gonna cross over. It was only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before Gibbons from Triple X meets Nick Fury. It's only a matter of time. Wow. So, yep, I remembered his name in Triple X. That's the most impressive thing about that.
Yes. Most impressive thing of the entire video.
Okay, you'll notice I'm stalling because there's really not a whole lot to say about this movie.
Yeah, I notice your notes are not very plentiful.
Not really. Regardless of the fact that it's in Kingsman, as a whole movie, it probably kind of strikes you immediately that this plot might be a little ridiculous. Now, I guess people are getting... This is fucking stupid, but... There's... This is another one of those movies like 28 Days Later. I guess I can get it with 28 Days Later because 28 Days Later is amazing. But since this movie isn't, I can't get on board with this. Apparently there's a big argument about the fact that they're not zombies. They're totally fucking zombies, but the argument is that they are not zombies. They're called, get this, phoners.
Yeah, I was reading that and I was like, what?
Sounds so much cooler than zombies, doesn't it? And by the way, that's really funny to me, because this is one of those... Obviously, if you want to build a world, you got to set up your terminology.
Of course.
I fucking hate you, Maze Runner.
There's got to be something before that.
That's the movie where I just really started to notice it.
I noticed you absolutely despised it.
These things, we call them blades. They're just fucking things that move, and they're giant blades. No fucking shit you call them that. But anyway... We call it the box. It's a fucking elevator! Shut up!
You deserve to be deleted.
But anyway, they want to set up their own terminology. So, they're called phoners instead of zombies. But that's really funny to me, though, because we got John Cusack in his own place. Like, he's the only person in this airport that wasn't on a phone. So he's, like, one of the only survivors here. And then he meets Samuel L. Jackson, who is, like, a train conductor. And then we have a little group. Isabel Furman from Orphan is here. And eventually they're a group of 4. For the most part, they're a group of 3 that just go from place to place. And that's just it. That's just it. We got all these people from all these different places that are survivors.
So that's The Walking Dead.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
And then everybody that they come across just knows the term phoners. We don't know who came up with it. There's really no outside source of anything. Just everybody suddenly knows the term phoners now. That everybody they come across calls them phoners.
Why?
It's like, how convenient. It's like, really? We were calling them that! You totally stole our thing, assholes! No, that's just the accepted term. And you must call them that because they're not zombies.
Oh, God.
Fucking bullshit.
Oh, geez.
Even Stephen King can't get me attached to this. Though I'm going to assume, since Cusack said both he and King were shut out of the creative process, that the book is much better than this. I can only assume.
Usually King books are a lot better than their source material.
Yeah, but even in true King fashion, though, it does shit the bed in the climax.
Of course.
Like in almost every King story, it's like everything is great, and then the climax is just like, I honestly do not know where I'm taking this, so we're just gonna do whatever. We're gonna make Pennywise a giant spider. We're gonna make the the Langoliers were the giant balls with teeth.
Yes.
We're gonna make Jack blow up the house, just cause the hotel. Excuse me. I don't know. I just called it the house.
Why is it a house?
I don't know.
It'll be a house there 1 year. Mark my words.
Okay. So, though I do hear he changed the ending from whatever it is in the book, which I don't know. I can only assume it was at least a little better than this ending. Because it's one of the, not to give too much away, but it's one of those fucking fake out endings.
Of course it is.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes, regardless of the fact that they're not zombies, this is a zombie movie. And I don't mean the good zombie movies. This is not, Dawn of the Dead or anything. This is not, all the good zombie movies. It just slipped out of my mind, but I know there's a few of them.
There's a lot of zombie movies. Well, the Romero
This
stuff,
is not...
Oh, boy.
No. This is...
Okay.
Because everything Romero has made after Land of the Dead...
Okay, you're correct.
Like Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead.
Straight to DVD ones.
This movie is like Survival of the Dead. Which is still Romero. Which is why I cut you off.
Oh, boy. Old school Romero. There you go.
It is not old school Romero, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not night, not dawn.
That is true.
Yeah.
Day. I like... Day gets
Day
a lot of
is
shit,
fine.
but I like Day,
Day's
too.
fine. I like Day.
And it's one of those ones also where, naturally, because we have this little band of survivors, they're going to have their little backstories throughout the movie. But this one, you gotta, give your characters depth before you kill them. Before you just kind of kill them immediately. Just introduce them to be killed. Does that sound like something?
Yep. Sounds like a lot of things, actually.
Just introduce new people so you don't have to kill the main characters. Does that sound familiar? I can't.
Oh, boy.
And if you do kill a main character, is it just for shock value? Does it progress the plot at all? It doesn't matter.
It does sound very familiar.
Okay, so before you know it, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's going to show up with a bat and the movie's just going to end.
I just hear the whistling now. Walking through that parade building.
So, we get their backstories, but the problem is, instead of it feeling like, we're getting the backstories of these characters so that really flushes them out and makes them feel real, every time one of them's saying their backstory, it's either, number one, for convenience sake, like Cusack,
Right.
or for Samuel L. Jackson and Isabel Furman, where it's like, mainly Jackson is the culprit here.
Really?
Where we get backstory just because there's really nothing else the script has to do right now. It's like, we really need to fill in some time. Maybe this guy should start saying what he's about. And then it's like, I don't even remember. I can't even tell you what the fuck his backstory was. Just the whole scene was playing out, and I was like, this is just not going to matter. Everything he's saying right now. I love Samuel L. Jackson so much. He's one of my favorite working actors right now. Every time he shows up, I will be there. Sure. I missed like one of his movies recently. That was like some straight-to-video action movie, but I'll get there. I'll find it again. And I'm not talking about Barry Legal. There was actually another one that I don't remember the name of. But, so I will watch. Like I said, he gives my favorite performance in my favorite movie of all time. The dude is electric to me, always.
Agreed.
But I just don't fucking care what he's talking about right now. I have no interest whatsoever. That's an accomplishment.
Oh,
That's
wow.
a really... It will not surprise you to know that. I was excited, like I said, when Eli Roth had this movie. Regardless of how you feel about him, he probably would have done something at least interesting with it.
You're right.
Or had some kind of directorial flair to it. Something. The director of this has not worked since 2010 when he made Paranormal Activity 2.
Oh my god.
So, yeah.
Well, review over.
He made Paranormal Activity 2, disappeared for 6 years, and they put him on this. After Eli Roth left. And Eli Roth left because he wasn't getting creative control. Just all the signs are coming together. This movie probably should have just died. And it's especially a shame, because you'll notice it's a Stephen King adaptation starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. The last time that happened, we got a fucking awesome movie.
Right.
We got an evil fucking room out of that pairing.
That versus exists on this channel.
And I think it's one of the not good ones, too. I really didn't do it a service. But this is just... and another thing is it's clear that it's also kind of trying to be a bit of a message about the brain-dead society and bones and stuff like that.
Oh, no.
Because it's very... When they're not attacking people, the not zombies, the boners, are basically... What they do is they just kind of stop and they open their mouths and like a phone staticky sound comes out of them and then they just retreat.
That sounds like a Stephen King short.
Oh, God, yeah.
Is this feature length or is this something that could have been a short? I know it's feature length. Does it feel like it should be feature length?
You mean the book or
the movie?
It just shouldn't be anything. It's a fucking zombie movie. That's
Would this work better as a short than a regular movie?
I don't see how. A short zombie movie. That's what it would have been. There would have been no payoff. It's a fucking zombie movie. There's nothing else to it. There's no kind of stopping point where you're like, that would have made an effective story. It's just a goddamn zombie movie and a really, really low tier one. That is it. There is nothing else going on in this.
Well, no one likes it, so you're not in the minority this time around.
Oh, God.
And of course it filmed in Atlanta. Why, of course.
And they try to throw other things in there.
Mm.
Like, Cusack has dreams. There might also be premonitions. And the reason for this is because he writes graphic novels about zombies. I have no idea what the fuck any of that was about. But, like I said, it was like Jackson giving his backstory. It's like, well, the movie kind of stopped, so we just need to be doing something. So, let's have him have premonitions. Or dreams, or whatever the fuck. One of his dreams is a woman getting face fucked by a zombie in a bathroom. A public bathroom. It's like, well, that was entirely useless. Thank you for that.
Oh my god.
Nice. And like I said, if it's not enough of a problem, the whole conclusion's just totally half-assed. It involves a fucking ice cream truck blowing up.
Yeah, I was reading that. That sounds rather right.
But like I said, that may or may not be the end. I probably said too much by now, but and also it kind of feels like half TV movie, half low budget. We made this in our backyard bullshit.
Which is normal Stephen King movies.
Like, there is a scene that should be awesome in a knowing kind of way.
Ooh.
When the outbreak first happens.
Right.
Because they're in an airport. Obviously, a plane is going to fall out of the sky and go through the airport, and there's going to be a big explosion.
Yeah.
Not a big, awesome, knowing-esque plane crash. But one of those TV movie, obviously animated fire plane crash.
The Langoliers.
Yes. Then there's a moment that felt right out of something like one of those low-budget zombie movies made around here.
Oh.
Where there's one of those... there's a guy in this movie that was trying to have his own Samuel L. Jackson moment. Where he was like, yeah, we're walking down the subway and I'm a tough guy and I'm awesome, I'm great. And then he just dies immediately.
Of course.
I'm pretty positive. What happens here is the guy turns around and going back to The Shining, an axe comes and just sticks in his chest.
Right.
Blood comes out of his mouth. There's only one problem. I am almost positive that blood was on his mouth before the axe hit him. This is just one of those movies that was put together that way.
Oh, boy.
Just everything. No, I say half-assed conclusion. The whole fucking thing feels half-assed. It feels a quarter-assed. They throw in Stacy Keach too. Stacy Keach is the guy that basically comes in for a second to say, "Hey, I'm a recognizable face. I'm going to be here for 30 seconds before I die. But first, I'm going to basically tell you what the message is about the brain dead phones bullshit thing."
Oh, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. There's nothing else to this movie. I think it wants to be this thing. This is just fucking stupid, but I get, because there's not a lot of things that King has not covered. So, to his credit. But even so, I think it's basically trying to be, and maybe the book is much better with this. I'm going to go ahead and
I'm sure it probably
I'm just going to go ahead and call that a fact, even though I have no idea.
That's fair.
I think it's basically trying to do, I just feel fucking stupid saying it, but here it goes. There was Jaws and there was Oceans. Jaws made you afraid of the ocean. Psycho made you afraid of showers. I think the idea is that Cell wants to make you afraid of cell phones in the way that Psycho made you afraid of showers and Jaws made you afraid of the ocean. It just seems like a fucking bad idea, doesn't it? Oh god. There's nothing else to this. That's what that is. We're over. We're done. That's it. Okay. Our fourth movie is Demolition. I'll try to move faster now because we're almost an hour in. Demolition is a movie by Jean-Marc Vallée, who did Dallas Buyers Club and Wild. However, it's basically also, despite the fact that he's really established himself with Dallas Buyers Club and now Wild, and showing that he has a very unique vision, and he's definitely somebody to look out for. He made one movie and got two Oscars. Made another movie, got two people, 2 Oscar nominations. The dude's kind of a force to be reckoned with, especially with actors. And he has basically made an overly dramatic David R. Russell movie.
Ooh.
I had heard that way back. This movie was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah, on the anticipated list.
And it never did. And it was basically... No, that was another movie on this video.
Demolition was on there, wasn't it?
I mentioned it in passing because I wasn't sure if it was going to come out or not.
Okay.
And they... I lost what I was saying now. Shit. Oh, yes. I had heard way back when that it was getting David Russell comparisons because it had test screenings that apparently didn't go well. And then I totally forgot about that until I was watching it. And then I was remembering... And, for the love of God, remember the last time Jake Gyllenhaal combined with David R. Russell? We got the worst movie of last year. Promising. Great. So it opens, and I guess I was already bitter with this movie from the get-go, because just from the opening scene, I wasn't with it. Because if you read the synopsis, you don't need trailers, you don't need anything. You just need to read a one-sentence synopsis, and you know that the movie is about Jake Gyllenhaal's life falling apart and him trying to put it back together after his wife dies in a car wreck. So the opening scene happens. There's no music, it's all kind of quiet. It's just the two of them driving on a bridge together. And just as soon as I saw this image, my immediate thought was, this scene is going to play out, and play out, and play out, and play out. And then he's going to look over at her. She's going to be looking at him. We're going to see something in her window. And he's going to go, no! And then their car's going to get hit. It's going to smash cut to the title on the screen. That was what I thought was going to happen.
Okay.
That is exactly what happens. And from then on, I was like, okay... Something tells me this won't be the only scene that I know every single solitary turn it's going to make. Okay. So I took a deep breath and went into the next hour and a half. And it's clear they're trying to... Okay. A lot of the praise comes from Gyllenhaal, because Gyllenhaal's on a pretty big run now. Even though Southpaw pretty much came and went. I almost remember nothing about that movie. I think I remember more about Forrest Whitaker in that movie than I do anything else. And I totally get the love, because Gyllenhaal's been doing great with Prisoners and Enemy and Nightcrawler. Just this nice little run he's on. And this seems to be picking up on that. The only trouble is that as much as I would love to just lay down a bunch of praise for him here and say he really elevated the movie, he really brought something that that wouldn't have been there otherwise. It just kind of felt like a concoction of all the characters he's played recently. And it didn't really feel like a whole lot of different things. Like, it was, Loki from Prisoners, and Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler, and his character from Enemy, too. The one we initially met. Just kind of as one oddball character with all kind of a combined traits that he had. I mean, he's not, like, blinking profusely, but pretty much all the other traits of these people. And he's not a psychopath like Lou Bloom or anything, but you get what I mean if you see it. It doesn't feel like he does a whole lot of new things here that he hasn't done in the past couple of years, which is unfortunate. But we also have, Naomi Watson here, who is a nice kind of counterpart. And does her thing fine. She's not here, like, a lot. She is after a while, but for a while there, she just kind of comes in and does her thing and then kind of leaves, and she does fine. The real standout to me in the cast was Chris Cooper, though, who is his father-in-law, who's basically not dealing very well with the grief of losing his daughter. There's a really good scene towards the beginning when he's talking to Gyllenhaal in a restaurant. He's talking about, like, how he's torn up about everything, and how he's like, when a kid loses his parents, they're an orphan, but when parents lose their child, there's no word for that. And I thought that was a really powerful scene. Most of Cooper's scenes in this movie can be described as powerful, I think. It's really nice to see him get such a nice, juicy part like this. Because he does... This is where he really shines, I feel. Almost... Not quite in that American Beauty territory. But close. Obviously not adaptation either, because that was a whole other monster. Right. But this is kind of the part he's kind of... It's not surprising to see him in this role, but he owns it just as well anyway. Okay. You'll notice something about Dallas Buyers Club and Wild, and that's the fact that they're really, really heavily edited. Dallas Buyers Club, it was fine. It even got nominated there, which isn't always the case of good editing, but in this case it is, right, for the most part. Wild was very, very edited, and for the most part, that's fine. Like, I can't remember how I felt about it initially, but looking back on it, I'm okay with it. But here, it's basically... This movie's edited basically exactly like Wild, only a shitload more annoying. It's like, this movie's really, really doing the flashy thing. There's one scene in particular. I was watching this movie alone. And when this scene happened, when Naomi Watts is walking up to Gyllenhaal, it's just her kind of approaching Gyllenhaal, but it keeps continuously cutting to black as she's doing. Like, it goes back and forth, like, black, Naomi Watts, black, Naomi, and it just cuts back and forth as she's leaning in towards Gyllenhaal. And out loud in this empty room, I said, "This is fucking annoying."
Fair point.
It's like, Naomi Watts is gonna give me a seizure. And there is no fucking point to this whatsoever. I mean, it's a callback because there's a scene earlier in the movie that's edited like that. But it was fucking annoying then, too. But it was just extra annoying in this case because it was pointless. And you can tell it's trying to be that O. Russell type of, O, period, not fucking apostrophe. That Russell vibe of quirkiness. because the way we get his backstory is that 10 minutes after his wife has died in the hospital, he goes over to a vending machine and his candy gets stuck. So he writes an angry letter to the vending machine company 4 times. And of course the customer service person is Naomi Watts. And this is how they find this connection. But before I even knew the customer service person was going to be Naomi Watts, I was just... The way we get his backstory is he puts his whole backstory in the letter. So they know how he got to the vending machine. Plus it's exposition for the movie. But even not knowing that Naomi Watts is going to be the customer service person, I still felt like... It was like an anti-Punch Drunk Love.
That's
like
the vibe I was getting from that.
Like, you know he's going to have some kind of connection with this person. Like, eventually, he's going to hear from them, and it's going to be like, I got all your letters, I know your whole backstory, and I feel for you. But it actually ends up being Naomi Watts, and the movie actually goes from there. I don't know, it doesn't make it any less predictable, but whatever. And it's, like I said, it basically thrives on just how fucking weird all of its characters are, which just gets tiresome. And just feels very derivative of other movies. Not even just Russell, but mostly Russell. And then there is, and with that, not just the editing, not just the flashy shit and the annoying shit, the pacing for this movie is fucking horrible. So it was an hour 40, but it feels so goddamn long. And it's really, and it's one of those cases where you're looking at the time, and it's like, you feel like you've made a significant chunk of this movie out of the way, and you're like 35 minutes in. It's one of those. And they just keep adding stuff on. It's one of those movies where you can tell how profound it's trying to be. Like, it really, really, like... I feel like if for some reason some freshman college kids come across this movie, it will change their life. It's one of... Wow. I'm sorry to be, degrading, but that's just what I was thinking. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of things it tries to cover, too. Like, really serious stuff. Like, grieving and platonic relationships. Because he and Naomi Watts are never really a thing. Like, there's something there, but they kind of keep it distanced. And then there's the whole starting, like, they get the fucking... I don't even know if you can call it symbolism. There's no, subtlety or anything about it. The whole idea is that Chris Cooper tells him this thing about, if you want to fix something, you've got to take it apart and put it back together again entirely. So he takes this advice about his leaky refrigerator. So he destroys the refrigerator, and the whole putting it back together thing never comes into play. That's strictly symbolism for putting your life back together. He just fucking destroys shit. There's nothing about putting it back together. But that's the thing, is he tears apart everything in his life so that he can build his life back up. Only the building back up is figurative, but the tearing apart is literal. So, fucking no. Oh, Jesus. Needless to say, this movie is a bit of a miscalculation in my eyes, anyway. The executive producers, are John Malkovich and Jason Reitman. That's an interesting combo, isn't it? That's our fucking Juno combo. Malkovich was a producer on that, too. But my god, does this movie fall way short of that mark. Okay, I'm probably making it sound worse than it is. Like, it's not extremely excruciating, it just is a little bit. I don't know. And maybe, I don't know, I kind of like it less the more I'm talking about it, but I don't know.
We're gonna find out in a little bit.
I guess. No, there's also a kid character. And we live in the times, so the kid is dealing with his sexual identity. So that's a whole thing in itself. That's it. That's this movie in a nutshell. It tries to do so many things and touch on so many heavy subjects, and it just falls short in like all of them. Like, there's not even one of all the aspects it's trying to reach where you're like, yeah, there, they really did it. They didn't hit the nail on the head, they pulled the nail out because they're, deconstructing.
Oh, God.
What did I say was next?
Oh.
Everybody Wants Some?
Yes.
Are we on the 5th movie now?
You have to say it properly, but yes.
Okay. Our 5th movie is Everybody Wants Some. We're almost there. We'll go quickly now. Because it's a Linklater movie about coming of age. There's not a whole lot to say, obviously. Obviously, this is Linklater's follow. Okay, it's a follow-up to a couple of his movies. I don't really know what we're supposed to think. It's supposed to be like I think it's called a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. But I do remember that when it was announced, it was advertised as it was going to literally be where Boyhood left off.
That is what he's saying in here.
Fucking pick one, dude.
The guy shows up at college.
You make so many movies that are so similar, you just say, it's not a sequel to one of my movies, it's a sequel to all of my movies. It's even kind of a convenient piece of Bad News Bears after a while.
Yeah. I see all of this being true.
It's like when you think of Linklater's filmography, you think Bad News Bears is the standout, but nobody even kind of brought that back. Fast Food Nation's the only one missing now.
Yeah.
So, Scanner Darkly, too. But let's go one at a time. Let's stick to this one. So yes, it's basically a sequel to a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused that picks up where Boyhood left off.
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
That's what we've been saying.
Just that exact wording.
It's Dazed and Confused the college years.
Yep.
There you go. Where we have I gotta remember all their names now.
I got this.
Jake is the new kid.
Yep.
And he's from Glee, I think. It's like the only other thing he's done, pretty much.
I think so.
And he shows up, and we have a whole other array of characters here. Most of them stand out. Some of them are just kind of blend into the background. But we have, and he's they're all part of the baseball team too, and he is a pitcher. And we have McReynolds, who is kind of, and would you say McReynolds is basically our alpha male here?
Oh yeah.
And he hates pitchers.
Yep.
So we're already kind of, at first we think there's going to be some kind of antagonistic thing here, but really the only real antagonistic aspect of the movie is his roommate, coincidentally.
Yeah.
Of course that's the way it would be.
He's kind of a tool.
And we learn that the antagonistic qualities of these dudes is just a hazing, and they're actually really cool.
Right.
And everybody in this movie is like really likable. Even the dude that's completely unlikable, the dude that wants to fight everybody. They make up for his unlikable qualities by making him funny. So it all comes together and works nicely. And even the roommate after a while, even though he's still like douchey, he's still just kind of, by the end, he's still just kind of one of them.
Yeah, he kind of warms up to being one of the guys.
And there'll be, this one obviously is not near as filled with familiar faces as Linklater's normal movies. There is this, like, after a while, sometime in the baseball field when it finally hit me and I looked it up just to make sure I was right. McReynolds is Tom Hanks' son in Road to Perdition. Mm-hmm. I was like, that kind of blew my mind. I thought he just disappeared. And then we have Willoughby was the stoner, who is Wyatt Russell, who is the son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. And Zoe Deutsch.
Yes.
Is that the end of our familiar faces, pretty much?
Ryan Guzman.
Oh, that's right, the boy next door.
Yep.
Is in this. Yeah, because he was in this and he was in Jim and the Holograms.
Oh, God.
I did not expect the next thing I saw him in to be a Linklater movie, let me tell you.
Lie.
Playing a likable character, too. Yeah, it really just kind of depends on where you're coming from as to how you view the characters.
Right.
Because you could totally view them as obnoxious guys that are obsessed with sex and partying and stuff like that, and you don't really go beyond that. But really, since Linklater's movies are seriously just about sitting back and just watching them be themselves in real life, makes them very easy to maybe not necessarily relate to, but these are less guys you relate to and more guys you recognize as supporting players in your own life.
Right.
I guess that's technically why Jake is our main focus. He's kind of the neutral one to where pretty much anybody can probably see through his eyes that's watching this. Who's either there right now in this particular time or was there in their youth.
He's the most relatable of the characters.
Yeah, and that's not to say... usually when people say that, that means that they're also the blandest character, but he's not really... I mean, I wouldn't fight a criticism that says he's the blandest character, but he's still... I wouldn't see him that way. Because especially with how quickly he fits into the group. Because normally it's one of those cases in movies like this where the new guy's kind of always the outcast until, like, the very end. But he finds his place really quickly. Like, it's still, like, his first... Like, he's still just met them when they're driving around in the car. And he kind of, like, already becomes one of them. So I thought that was a nice take on just kind of... The hazing aspect doesn't... The hazing aspect is always there because it's dudes being dudes, but... as far as him being, like, the new guy, it's only there for so long, and then he just, like in real life, just kind of gradually becomes one of them very quickly.
Right.
And there are some things in here that will probably give you flashbacks, even if you can't relate. The Knuckles game, I remember from school. I never participated because I don't like pain, and I thought the people that did it were fucking idiots. It's like why would you do that?
Like the hacky sack game where if you dropped it, you got it thrown at your back. That's what happened back in the day.
But yeah, even if this isn't your, because obviously it's set in the 80s, I want to say.
Yeah, fall of 1980.
Yeah.
And it shows too.
So yeah,
like the counterculture, it really shows.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an exaggeration in like the hair and the mustaches and the clothes, but it's still very much, it's pretty much.
Everybody wants to be Jeff Spicoli.
Yeah. That movie was still 2 years off from.
I know, that's the great thing.
And what I do like also is that pretty much the movie is basically just let's see how many times we can party and get laid in these 3 days before class starts. And I do like that with what Linklater does is he likes to do the just dudes fucking around, being dudes and partying and all that. But there's always a reality underlying. Like everybody knows kind of where their life is about to go, which is why they're doing the things that they do. And I do like that they kind of keep that consistent throughout the movie with the countdown clock to when class starts. How there's always, like, regardless of how hard they party or how many, women they bang or whatever, there's always that kind of constant reminder that you're getting closer and closer to reality setting in. Because the second that clock runs out and they go to school, everything's going to be, well, maybe not, completely different, but not as what it has been over these past 3 days. And obviously there will come a time where the countdown clock starts again to when they're out of school and they're in the real world, and then it's going to be a whole other thing. So there's always kind of that underlying reality where we know it's coming, and it's not just the movie's going to end on a party note. That is not going to be the case. And I also like that, I was talking about how the new guys basically just kind of blend in. Because Jake's actually not the only new guy. The other guy was, too, whose name I have forgotten.
I have their names here.
And that's that one guy in particular, whose name I can't remember, so you probably have no idea who I'm talking about.
Jay. He's the guy with the fake mustache, kind of look like Patrick Fugget.
The one guy, the other guy that was the new guy. There was besides Jay. But that guy, who you probably don't know who I'm talking about, was another guy I felt like I knew from real life. Like, I can't put my finger on who in my real life I feel like that is, but I feel like I know that guy. I think this is one of his first movies, too, because I remember looking him up and not finding
What's his name?
I don't remember. I don't remember either of his names, his real name or his character. I'll know it when I hear it. But what I'm getting at is, I like the fact that it doesn't separate. In most movies like this, there's always separation and cliques and stuff. Like, there's jocks and there's nerds. Like, it would be, in any other movie, it'd be like, all the other guys are the jocks, and like Jake is the nerd. But there's no real, and it's not even that Jake is a jock either.
No.
Nobody's anything. They just are. They're
That's
just who they are.
very surreal of you to say that.
They're their own thing. What do you mean?
It's just, I mean, it's the perfect way to put it. It really is, because they don't fit a stereotype. Even like if you did this movie now, they would not fit a stereotype at all. Nobody would. Everybody is known for everything in this world, and I like it.
And I get on movies' cases when they're really heavy on soundtrack.
Oh my god!
But obviously, that's just Linklater's thing, for starters.
Great.
But the thing about it also that Linklater does that other movies fail with is that there's always music in the background.
Right.
Not just because that just sets the feel of that environment, but also just kind of, it almost feels like it's like the scene, it makes the scenes of the movie seem like their own album. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's very Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe's very Linklater. Let's get this straight.
I like Cameron Crowe.
I know Say Anything was like in the 80s before Linklater was really a thing.
Right.
But
So technically,
let's look at where we're at now. Richard Linklater got his first Best Director nomination and almost won Best Picture. And like 4 months later, Aloha came out. Let's talk about who's on top between Linklater and Cameron Crowe.
But I like how it's very good with the culture, because it's in the 80s and it's the death of disco, and then you've got punk rock is kind of like underground, you've got hard rock, you've got metal, you've got a little bit of everything, you have country in there too. So it's basically telling the whole story. I like that, because they're adapting to their surroundings, just so they can find new girls to be with.
So obviously if there's one problem, it's that, I mean, I like what he's doing, but I mean, what we were talking about, this is not in any way unexplored territory by Linklater already.
No.
It very much feels like, he's done this before a lot. But even so, all the stuff we've been talking about, though, makes it something else, and makes it worth, watching. And definitely, I remember not being that, I was totally at the wrong age, I think, when I saw it. I saw it really young. I need to see Dazed and Confused again, because I remember not taking to it. But
I saw it when I was 13, so...
I would have been before the age of the characters in the movie, so that probably wasn't helping anything.
Right.
So now that I'm long past that, I don't know how I'll feel about it now either, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's one of those movies I've been meaning to catch again for a long time, but
right.
I just
There's
haven't
only
yet.
one way to do that.
I know. Which I was thinking about will probably be before too long.
I figured it would be.
So yeah,
Nice.
that was nice.
Zoe Deutsch in this movie.
It's the best. Shut up.
No,
It's the
seriously.
Best,
Put her character
the
over.
best movie on this video? Yeah,
Oh,
probably.
easily the best movie on this video.
You saw 3 out of 7!
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
You have not seen these next 2 by any means.
I maybe will eventually.
I doubt it.
Well, because I found something else online that we're going to have to watch sometime soon.
Our 6th movie.
Correct.
Is The Family Fang. Which is Jason Bateman's next directorial effort after a movie I love so much. Bad Words.
My god, that movie's awesome.
I don't say, I hope you've been watching these videos and you don't know that I'm saying that unironically.
No,
I mean,
he loves this movie. Like, we both do.
It was top 5 of 2014 for me.
Uh-huh.
That was a pretty decent year too. There were some pretty kick-ass movies in that lineup.
2005 was a great year for movies. And for things in general.
That's great. We're on 2014, but that's great. And this movie is very interesting in that it begins, and it's a very... For a lot of this movie, you don't really know what this family is doing. Their parents are... their father is Christopher Walken. And we start off when they're children, and Walken's thing... Well, their whole family is about creating art. And it just so happens that his art is like... He's kind of like Banksy.
Okay.
Only instead of like graffiti and art and whatever, it's like performance art. like, they create scenes in public that he secretly records to start a ruckus, and then they just leave. And he calls it his art. And sometimes he goes really, really far. And then sometimes a little too far. And then eventually they grow up, and now the kids are Nicole Kidman and Jason Bateman. And Walken and the mom have disappeared. And it's just, they find their car, and their car has blood in it, and they have disappeared. And there's supposedly a killer on the loose whose MO this is. And the question through the whole movie is, have they been murdered, or is this the art? And it basically turns into a bit of a mystery thing, while also being a family dramedy. It's a very interesting concoction of things. So, and it's Bateman takes a very interesting approach to it. It's a very hard tone, I imagine, to juggle. Because you got quite a few things going on here. Because like I said, there's a funny element to it, but it's also, I almost feel like it's a drama, like almost up front. But then once it really gets into like the nitty gritty of it, there's a real dark mystery element going on. Like it gets really kind of, like I said, dark. And it's one of those cases also where the outcome seems obvious. Like as soon as the setup happens, you kind of think, well, it clearly must be fill in the blank. But regardless of that, it's still very much, like something like that would typically hinder the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still such a mystery around it, and really throws in things that make you kind of unsure of what you think. But still make it intriguing enough as it goes. And it's still, obviously, Bateman's handling of bad words was, outstanding. And it's clear because I think he did a few of the episodes of Arrested Development too, so he's really got a grasp on directing comedy. The question was, how he could handle drama. I don't, obvious, this isn't even much of a criticism, it's just obvious. It's clear he has a much firmer hand on comedy than he does drama. Which, like I said, is kind of obvious, because that's where most of him comes from. I mean, he had performances like last year with The Gift that show you just how good he can do drama and dark and stuff like that. As far as handling them behind the camera, it's still handled very well. And he's definitely somebody that I like every time a movie comes out where he's in the director's chair. We're gonna get something very, very interesting. If not totally great, something at least interesting. And there's even times where he takes it's very like the plot itself, kind of not like the plot itself, but like the family aspect of it. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes it almost feels like he's taking a Bergman approach. I know that sounds weird coming from Jason Bateman of all people. There's one particular scene though where the camera kind of stays here. And on this side we have a wall, and on this side we have a doorway. And it's just this shot, and Bateman's just kind of standing here talking to Kidman, who is off screen because she's behind the wall. And I was like, this really feels a lot like a Bergman shot. Like really, really, like at first you kind of think Woody Allen, but then you're like, well, Woody Allen's inspiration is Bergman, so that's really where it goes all the way back to, like with the way Bergman did Face to Face, stuff like that, like the scene where we have somebody on one side of the wall and somebody on the other side of the wall, and like it's almost like two scenes are happening. That scene, I don't know who's watching the Family Fang review that's seen Face to Face, but I'm just hoping you know what I'm talking about.
All right,
I'm just gonna throw it out there and hope you, yeah, hopefully some of you are Bergman fans. I hope. Walken is really good in this. Like, really, really good. Like, Bateman and Kidman do their thing really well, and they really have the movie, like, right here, because they're the main focus. Obviously, Kidman's my favorite actress in the world, so that's gonna be a given for me. Even her shitty movies, I try to forgive her for. Unless they're The Golden Compass or The Invasion, fuck them. But and of course Bateman, with every new movie, I just love him more. Starting, I think Juno started that. And then just from then on, it was like, anything Bateman does, it's fine by me. That's great. But Walken is a real standout here. There's one particular scene where he gets very, very upset about a free sandwich. It sounds funny, but it's actually a pretty dramatic scene, and he's really, really good in that scene, as he is in the rest of the movie. And just the way you kind of constantly question his character, he really kind of keeps that intrigue alive as to how exactly you feel about this dude. And yeah, if I have a main problem with this movie, it feels like there's a lot here that could propel to greatness. But once all is said and done, it kind of feels like it only scratches the surface of what it could have been. And kind of really leaves you with, like when I left Bad Words, it was like, that went about as well as it possibly could have. Like it just went, and then it took an idea, and it ran with it, and then it just kept getting, with every new turn and every new idea, it just kept getting better and better, and just taking all the right turns it needed to get to just the right place. I didn't really feel that here. It was kind of like, I get where it was going, and I like what it's doing and what it's trying to say. But I feel like it just kind of got to a certain place, and then was like, I think we're done here, and then just kind of left us. So while it might leave you a little underwhelmed, the getting there is handled quite well. The performances mainly, and the fact that Bateman is such an interesting director right now, really keep the interest in it. So yeah. I got this movie out of Redbox on Tuesday. I had no idea it was out. Like, I saw a movie directed by and starring Jason Bateman that also had Nicole Kidman in it. And I was like, well, I'm clearly seeing that as soon as I possibly can. And apparently it came out and then left, and now it's on DVD already. And I had no idea whatsoever. And while I was there at Redbox, I picked up our last movie. Our last movie, finally, is The Program. A movie I was very highly anticipating, if you saw that video last year. Until I got bumped to this year.
Which is ironic you're saying that, because that's this week's video, which comes out tomorrow.
Yes. I wasn't planning that either.
I know.
Like I said, The Program was just kind of... It's just kind of there. I was like, oh, the Family Fang. I was like, wait, The Program's out? Okay. And so I had to remind myself, I think it came out in theaters in like March, The Program.
Something like that, yeah.
So... And yes, I was very, very intrigued because, number one, the director is Stephen Frears. A director whose filmography is not flawless, but it is very, very varied. And he's a very, very interesting director. I said very a lot just now.
Yes, he did.
He's been very good with biopics lately. So, like he did Philomena, I believe, was his last movie before this.
Wow.
Which I love.
That movie's amazing.
Yes. And he did The Queen, but then he'll go off and do something like The Grifters. He did Dangerous Liaisons. He's got a really good lineup.
That's a solid filmography.
And that's just some of it. And so this is his new one, and it is. I struggle to say biopic. It is basically just about strictly the doping matters of Lance Armstrong's life, starring Ben Foster. One of those really nice beefy lead roles we've been hoping he would get before too long. He's had lead roles, but very very small movies. Like he did a movie called Here, versus like him hanging out in a vacation spot with a woman for 2 hours. It's like that's really all I remember about that movie. But here he gets a really meaty part. Like they did not stray with making Lance Armstrong a meaty part for an actor here. I was a little put off at first by the fact that Ben Foster kind of looks nothing like him, but then they did. I don't know if it's prosthetics or if it's just the way they shot him, or what it is. But sometimes it's like, that's not Lance Armstrong, that's Ben Foster. But then, like, he'll turn his head, and you're like, holy fucking shit, he just turned into Lance Armstrong. Like, he is there right before my eyes. It's really weird the way they shoot him. Sometimes, nothing like him. Sometimes, it's like the dude is there. It's weird. And unfortunately inconsistent. That's unfortunate, but regardless, you don't need to look like the dude in order to portray the dude, so it helps, but if you can just perform and bring the character to life, that's all we need. We got quite a cast in this one too. Obviously, one of the things I was very excited about was Chris O'Dowd playing the reporter that outed him, and who he had kind of a war with. But we also have Jesse Plemons, who is basically the guy in the races that was supposed to kind of protect him and make sure he won, but ultimately he found out about the doping and was like a kind of, is this guy gonna rat him out or not kind of scenario. There was Dustin Hoffman has a really small part towards the end. Like, I didn't even know he's in the opening credits, but then I totally forgot he was supposed to be in it when he showed up, and it caught me by surprise. And a few more recognizable faces that have slipped my mind currently. And if you're wondering, I would like to think if you've seen the poster, there is no question as to how Armstrong is portrayed. It is certainly not heroic. Because what is the poster? Like, it shows 4 words that describe Lance Armstrong. About how he was, athletic, and, he was a voice in a really, big way. And the last word they use to describe him is cheat. and yeah, he's basically portrayed, it's champion, hero, legend, cheat. So, if you're thinking that this movie is going to stray from the subject, you're sorely mistaken, because we don't really explore any other aspects of his life, which may be a problem, because there's no real like analysis of his character. So we basically just have him, like, the only thing we know about why he's doing this is because he wants that badly to win. Like, there's really nothing else we learn about him that kind of shows us where he's coming from. Or whether or not we should, maybe feel sympathy for the guy because maybe something happened to him where he strives so hard to reach that point of greatness, that he'll cheat his way there. Maybe he feels regret, or maybe he feels guilty or something. Or maybe he is just a fucking douchebag that cheats. We just don't really know where he's coming from this portrayal. We just strictly know, which is of no fault of Foster's, obviously. This is all in what they decided to tell him, what they decided to leave out. Because he's very much... Ben Foster's not going to walk into a movie and not give it his all. Unless that movie's Warcraft, in which case we can't blame him. So that was kind of... And so for a while there, it kind of keeps you at a distance throughout the movie. Like, when they're going through the whole process, like, when we start off with his cancer, and then we kind of go into that. And obviously, through his cancer, the doctors find out what's in his system. And we go from there. And for a while there, since we can't really get too much of a grasp on the character, it doesn't feel very involving. When it really kind of kicks into gear and started really having my interest, was when this war with Chris O'Dowd started. Because the movie begins with them, like, doing a bet thing, and then O'Dowd has to shave his beard. And but then once it gets to the point that O'Dowd finds out about this, he doesn't necessarily even find out about it. He just kind of slowly pieces it together. And then it basically becomes an all-out war about O'Dowd trying to prove this, and Armstrong saying, I've never taken drugs in my life. And it's very... Yes, it's a very... I kind of wish that's... Like, when I was really anticipating it, that's what I thought most of the movie was going to be. Especially since Chris O'Dowd gets the other above the title credit. I kind of thought this was going to be the main focus. But not quite. It is after a while. But then it kind of... For a big portion of the middle, that's what the movie is. But then by the end, it's kind of trailed off in the beginning. It's hardly there. We're kind of building to it. And I do, like, shock surprise, I like Chris O'Dowd. I know that's never happened before. No, of course, Chris O'Dowd is amazing. And I did like the way he portrays it in a way that we know where the character's coming from. He has a particular line that I really like, where they're talking about how basically all of them are doped up now. And they want him to go report on the race, and his response is, I have no interest in going up a mountain to watch chemists compete, is his line. And you kind of get a real vibe of his character, which is weird. We feel like we know a lot more about his character than we do Armstrong by the end of this. That's bizarre.
That is interesting.
Jesse Plemons' character, too, is really well-rounded, so... Yeah, I don't know why they... Like, it's kind of clear... Well, the thing about it, though, is the book that O'Dowd's character wrote is the source material for the script. That probably has something to do with it. Like, I know there's no, there's no real one way to look at it. Obviously, of course, Armstrong is in the wrong here, and it's not totally out of the realm that he's portrayed as a villain. But and like I said, Foster is really, really good here, and there is a real conviction here. Like, we do get his striving to win. That we get. It's just kind of not having any other motivations as to why or how he got to this point of wanting it so badly. Unless he's just naturally competitive, I don't know. And I was praising Frears, who obviously is a great director. Here, I think we're getting a little too flashy. There was a lot of camera tilts for no reason. Sometimes it's him riding his bike, and it's like, okay, that looks kind of nice. I don't know why we're at this angle, but that's nice. But then we get the same angle, and it's just him standing in a hallway. And it's like, is he in Joseph Gordon-Levitt's dream right now? I don't understand why we are shooting it this way. I don't know. And it doesn't need to be as flashy as it is. I mean, it's a movie that benefits from some flashiness, sure, but maybe not the flashiness approach that they took. And a lot of time it's fun. Like, they utilize real footage nicely in certain places. But it's, once it gets going, like, once it gets in after that first 45 minutes or so, it kind of, and like I said, the him versus O'Dowd story kind of kicks in, and we have the Jesse Plemons character that's kind of a wild card. Then it gets, pretty interesting from then on, so, yeah. It is, it's funny to see the scene when he's talking about how a movie's going to be made about him, and it's like, who's going to play you? It's like... Are they about to name drop Ben Foster? Are they really? No, at the time, apparently, it was Matt Damon or Jake Gyllenhaal. And he mispronounces Jake Gyllenhaal's name in a hilarious way. So yeah, I guess it got some complaints that some of it was pretty on the nose, which I guess I get. They try to liven things up a little bit, despite the fact that for a while it feels very, very standard biopic, as far as just kind of this event happened and this event happened and so on.
Right.
Like the cancer, then the drugs, then O'Dowd, and so on. But they lighten it up like they have when he's first getting doped up and doing the races. There's a montage that plays. It's the version of Mrs. Robinson that was in Wolf of Wall Street. What are their names? The Lemonheads, I think is what their name is.
Yeah, it's Lemonheads.
Okay. Then there's a funny montage where he's doing all the commercials.
There's the version of Wayne's World 2 as well.
And all the products. But the thing about it is that all these commercials he's doing and all this stuff he's putting out, as soon as he's done filming the commercials, it turns out that he fucking hates all the products. So I did say they try to liven it up with stuff like that, which is fine. And then they have, I guess this got some complaints for being too on the nose, but I actually kind of like it, I like obviously the ending of the movie is him confessing that he's taking performance-enhancing drugs. And now it's apparent to the whole world that he is a cheater. The end credit song is Everybody Knows by Leonard Cohen.
Of course.
It's like, a lot of people think that's on the nose. I kind of like it, actually. Though it's very hard for me to not say good things about Leonard Cohen music, so that was never going to be the case. I was always going to kind of like that. So yeah, once it gets going, it's fine, but it's some of it's a bit of a drag. So, but yeah.
So you were let down.
Well, obviously, but it's fine. I'm not bitter about it.
No. Your bitterness came about an hour ago.
Yeah.
That's going to end another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. Before we end, almost 2 hours in, thank you for joining us today for the long video. It's timestamped, as you can notice. And I'll do one last thing and mention the fact that we need star amounts. So, this is the fun part. Secret Life of Pets.
2.5.
Mike and Dave.
1.5.
Cell.
1.5.
Demolition.
2.
Everybody Wants Some.
3.
The Family Fang.
2.5.
The Program.
2.5.
Alright.
That's a lot of middle ground.
Good lord. Next week is Ghostbusters and a bunch of limited releases.
Hopefully.
We'll see what happens. Ghostbusters for sure. We don't know anything else. The Infiltrator I've heard a lot of things about, but we don't know if we're getting it, number 1. We don't know if it's really coming out next week, number 2.
Apparently nobody knows the status on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Versus this week should be fun. Disorderly Romance.
I didn't want to use that one because I didn't know if it'd be offensive. But...
I'm not putting emphasis, so I mean it's making it a little easier.
They'll know when it comes out.
I'm sure they will. So later tonight, I'm on Travis's podcast, Time to Be Announced. Tomorrow, our 5th Halloween Horror Nights 26 podcast at 9 p.m. with the elite of the Podcast Network, so stay tuned for that. Check out our Zazzle store at Podcast Network, Facebook fan page at Podcast Network, and at Podcast Network on Twitter. Thank you, Universal, for making me their follower of the week. And that's what we've got for this week. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. And AJ, any parting words?